He had over 37 puncture wounds.
And the canine is one of the most versatile tools that we have.
It was this case in April of last year that prompted Salt Lake City to stop using canines to take down suspects. 36-year-old Jeffrey Ryans was on his knees with his hands in the air when an officer ordered his canine to attack. That officer is now facing criminal charges, and now a joint investigation by Fox 13 and the Salt Lake Tribune has found similar issues in other Utah cities. Here's Fox 13 investigative reporter Nate Carlisle, and we do want to warn you that some of the video in this story is graphic.
Hit that guy! Hit him!
Hit is the command canine handlers give their dogs to attack.
You see our client standing on the counter of the Burger King with his hands in the air, completely giving himself up, and the officers pulled our client off the counter, and then the canine officer ordered the dog to hit several times. Ow! This boy reacted and started to try to grab the face of the dog to pull it off of his leg, and then he was met with orders from the police.
Stop fighting the dog! Stop fighting!
To stop fighting the dog.
But as you can see in these body cam videos obtained by Fox 13 and the Salt Lake Tribune, police often send in the dogs even when a suspect is surrendering.
Get on the ground right now! Get on the ground! Hit! Get on the ground now! Get on the ground now!
Pete Sorensen is an attorney representing the family of this 14-year-old boy who was bitten by a Salt Lake City police canine in June of last year. Sorensen acknowledges the teen was not supposed to be in a closed Burger King in the middle of the night, but he says the police response went too far.
Near as his family could tell, he had over 37 puncture wounds.
Stop fighting the dog!
It's not an isolated incident. Fox 13 and the Salt Lake Tribune analyzed 39 body camera videos from the 3 largest police departments in Salt Lake County: Unified Police, West Valley City, and Salt Lake City. In 8 of those videos, a suspect had their hands up or were face down when the dog attacked. In 7 cases, a canine continued to bite even after the suspects were in handcuffs.
Well, it depends on what your definition of complying is.
Joe McBride is president of Salt Lake City's police union. He says just because someone's hands are up or the person is lying on the ground doesn't mean they're not a threat.
If they're in a situation where they can still access a weapon, or they can still flee, or they're in a vehicle, or they can do something that puts the officer in jeopardy, they're not necessarily compliant.
But you're saying in those circumstances it may be appropriate to go ahead and order the dog to attack anyway, or bite anyway?
Correct.
I'm not fighting, sir. Please, come on. I'm not fighting, sir, please. Come on out.
Just like the use of a gun, the use of a canine, or the use of a taser or a baton can be both lawful or unlawful under circumstances.
Salt Lake County District Attorney Sim Gill is reviewing 106 canine bite cases over 4 years to determine whether the handlers committed any crimes. The review started last year after Gill learned police departments weren't forwarding dog bites to Gill's office like other use of force cases.
That is something that should have happened in a timely fashion, but now we have to go back and recreate that investigative effort.
Gill said prosecutors have seen some dog bites that cross the line, but he can't prosecute the officers because the statutes of limitations have expired. Gill has charged Salt Lake City police officer Nicholas Pierce with 2 counts of felony assault. Pierce is the handler who ordered a dog named Tuco to bite Jeffrey Ryans. In another episode, where the video has not yet been released, a woman shut off the car she was in, tossed the keys, and put her hands out the window. She did not follow orders to exit the car. Prosecutors say that's when Pierce lifted Tuco up to bite the woman.
As a blanket statement to ask people to freeze when they're in the depth of that attack, or it's happening right now, is probably an unrealistic expectation for every individual.
Anu Asnani is an assistant professor of psychology at the University of Utah who studies fear-based disorders.
Hey, stop fighting! Stop fighting my dog!
She said some people may panic when confronted with a canine and not respond to police commands.
Stop resisting! Stop resisting!
I'll often say to folks who regret, for instance, that they were getting bitten by a dog and they tried to fight the dog off and it made it worse. A lot of the work that I do is talk about what else was your other option? You thought you were going to die.
Screw him off. I got the arm. I got the arm. I got that arm.
I'll just
Hold still, lady. Don't fight.
In Salt Lake City, every use of force is reviewed.
McBride worked as a canine handler earlier in his career. He says Gill's review is hurting police morale and may discourage departments from using canines when they need them.
A lot of times when a dog is barking, we will get surrenders, where people hear that dog barking and they're like, nope, I'm done. That in and of itself has prevented countless uses of force.
Taxpayers have already dealt with the consequences of errant canine bites. According to more records obtained by Fox 13 and the Tribune, Unified Police has received 8 claims of unwarranted dog bites over 9 years and has paid more than $134,000 to settle them. Salt Lake City paid nearly $40,000 to a man seriously hurt by a canine who was charged with resisting officers while the dog was biting him. Those charges were eventually dropped.
There's been evidence for a while that there's some problems with the dogs, and that information's never seemed to filter to the appropriate places. Is that a fair assessment?
I think that's a fair assessment.
As he prepares to file a lawsuit on behalf of the 14-year-old, Sorensen said he'd like to see the police officers in the case charged with crimes.
Been disturbed greatly by this, certainly, and they don't like the idea that cops can somewhat shoot first and ask questions later when it comes to inflicting force with the use of a dog.
You got him, Tyler? You want me to get him? Get your hand back there! Take it. Hand on the back.
In Salt Lake City,
Hit! Yeah! Hit! Good boy!
Nate Carlisle, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Stop me, this thing!
If you have a story you'd like Fox 13 News to investigate, send an email to iteam@fox13now.com, or you can call our tip line at 801-536-1314.